Some of you were not feeling in life. Things were imperfect, yes, but you were moving, you were growing, you were becoming. You were learning your rhythm, building your purpose, finding your voice, carrying your assignment with dignity. Then you met someone and they seemed interested. They pursued you, they entered your world, and slowly they got leverage. Sometimes it begins as assistance when you needed one, sometimes it begins as romance, sometimes it becomes marriage, sometimes it becomes family, sometimes culture gives them a title that comes with power: husband, in law, family member, whatever, head of home. And then something begins to happen that most people cannot name. It's not always loud abuse. Sometimes it is quieter than that. It is a spiritual displacement. It is as if the moment the relationship becomes official, they begin to behave as though your life is no longer yours. As though the story God wrote into you is now up for approval. As though whatever God dreamt when He knit you together in your mother's womb is now irrelevant. Because now there is a new God in the room. Not the God you pray to, a human God. A person who begins acting like the gatekeeper of your destiny. And it shows up in sentences that sound normal to the world but feels like a cage to your soul. Why do you need to do that? I am the head of the home. You have to follow my dreams. You don't have to do that. Let's be realistic. Focus on the home. You're doing too much. You're getting too visible. You are changing. You're supposed to be my helper. You are supposed to be aligned with my calling. And what they are really saying is this: the measure of life you live now will be the measure I permit. Not what God wrote. Not what your gifts demand. Not what your calling requires. What I permit. And it becomes devastating because you start looking at yourself and start asking a painful question. Wait, before this marriage, I was not reckless. I wasn't lost. I wasn't irresponsible. I was a self-respecting adult. I was already building. I was already trying. I was already becoming. So how did love turn into limitation? How did marriage become a ceiling? How did partnership become permission? How did something that was supposed to expand my life become the reason my life started shrinking? Look, and this is where many people become trapped, especially women. Because culture can sanctify control, religion can excuse it, family can enforce it. They call it submission. They call it respect. They call it keeping the peace. They call it being a good woman. But what they are really demanding is something much darker: the forfeiting of your narrative, the surrender of your assignment, the slow death of the woman God created so that a smaller version of you can be managed. And the reason this feels so heavy is because it's not just emotional, it is existential, it is spiritual. Because when someone steps into God's place in your life, they do not just control your decisions, they begin controlling what you believe you are allowed to become. And if you stay long enough, something subtle happens. You start editing yourself even before they speak. You start shrinking your dreams. You start silencing your ideas. You start abandoning your own momentum. Not because you suddenly stopped being capable, but because you were trained to believe your destiny requires someone's permission. Now, I'm going to say this clearly. A healthy relationship does not reduce your life, it expands it. A healthy marriage does not erase it, it protects it. A healthy partner does not compete with your assignment on your life. They become a witness to it. They become a supporter of it. They do not take God's pen out of His hands and start rewriting your future, because that is what this really is: narrative control, identity theft, a human being trying to become the author of a life they did not create. And if you have been feeling that invisible grief, like you are watching the real you slowly disappear, like you are living a life that is smaller than the one you know you were called to live, you are not dramatic, you are not rebellious, you are not too much. You are waking up because you were not created to be managed. You were not created to be reduced. You were not created to need permission to become who God called you to be. And the truth is this: any relationship that requires the death of your purpose in order to survive should not survive. Yes, I said it. It shouldn't survive. This is Redefine Your Narrative. And if you have been living under someone else's permission, it is time to return to God's original design. It's time to reclaim your story. I explore this phenomenon much more deeper in my forthcoming book, The Architecture of Peace. Pre-orders are open. The link is in my bio and it is available on Amazon. God bless you.